Why is it that the people you protected, forgave, and carried through their darkest moments are sometimes the first to betray you? Why does the deepest wound so often come, not from an enemy, but from someone who once needed your hand to survive? Most people think betrayal is simple. They call it cruelty, ingratitude, bad character. And sometimes it is, but that is only the visible layer. Beneath it, something darker is at work, something more humiliating. Because many people do not betray you despite your help. They betray you because of it. Arthur Schopenhauer understood a truth. Most people spend their lives avoiding. Human beings are not ruled by gratitude as much as they are ruled by ego, by pride, by comparison, by insecurity, by the quiet pain of feeling small in front of someone who remained strong. And that is why kindness does not always create love. Sometimes it creates shame. Sometimes it creates silent envy. Sometimes it creates a debt the other person cannot bear to feel. And instead of rising to meet your goodness, they try to destroy the reminder of their weakness. That is the hidden psychology of betrayal. The first reason people betray those who help them most is simple: help can injure pride. When someone is broken and you hold them up, they may thank you in words, but deep inside, another feeling can begin to grow. They remember that you saw them helpless, you saw them confused, you saw them desperate. And if they are emotionally immature, they do not process that pain with humility. They turn it into resentment. You become the witness to the version of themselves they cannot stand. That is where betrayal often begins. Not with open hatred, not with a plan, just discomfort, a quiet irritation, a subtle tension. Because your presence reminds them of who they were when they had no strength of their own. And many people would rather attack the witness than face the weakness. This is why some people rewrite history after you help them. They minimize what you did. They act as if your loyalty was control. They say you were too involved, too intense, too much. Why? Because if they admit how much you gave, they must also admit how much they lacked. The second reason is that help changes the balance of power. Every act of support creates an imbalance. One person gives, one person receives. One person has stability, clarity, resources, or emotional strength. The other is in need. Even when love is real, that imbalance leaves a mark. A mature person feels gratitude. An insecure person feels reduced. An insecurity rarely speaks honestly. It does not say, "Your help made me feel small." It says, "You think you're better than me." It does not say, "I hate that I needed you." It says, "You were trying to control me." It does not confess, "Your strength exposed my weakness." It accuses, distances, and eventually betrays. That is why betrayal can feel so absurd. You thought you were offering care. They experienced exposure. You thought you were building trust. They felt a loss of power. And instead of facing that feeling, they try to reverse it by turning against you. Betrayal is often not just an act of malice. It is an attempt to escape humiliation. The third reason is envy. Not always envy of money or beauty or success. Sometimes something far deeper. They envy your self-control, your discipline, your emotional stability, your ability to stay calm while they were collapsing. They envy the fact that you could give what they could not even give themselves. This kind of envy is dangerous because it often hides behind admiration. At first, they praise you. They say you are rare. They cling to your wisdom. They depend on your presence. But admiration without self-respect rarely stays pure, because the more they admire your strength, the more they are forced to confront their own lack of it. And if they do not have the courage for honest self-reflection, admiration slowly rots into resentment. Jealousy rarely speaks honestly. It does not say, "I envy your peace." It says, "You've changed." It does not say, "Your stability makes me uncomfortable." It says, "You think you're perfect." It does not say, "Your light exposes my darkness." It says, "You're fake." This is why some people betray you right after they become stronger. When they were weak, they needed your hand. But once they can stand again, they no longer want to remember that they once stood beneath you. So instead of honoring your role in their healing, they compete with you. They distance themselves from you. Sometimes they even try to humiliate you, as if your fall could erase the memory of their dependence. The fourth reason is emotional debt. Practical debt is easy to understand. You borrow money, you repay it. You borrow time, you return it. But emotional debt is heavier. It enters the conscience. It creates an invisible record. This person stood by me when I was empty. For a strong person, that memory creates respect. For a weak person, it creates pressure. Why? Because true gratitude requires humility. It requires the strength to admit that you were helped without feeling permanently diminished by it. Many people do not have that strength, so instead of carrying gratitude with grace, they try to escape the debt altogether. Some do it by disappearing, some by becoming cold, some by convincing themselves you were never that important, and some by betrayal, because betrayal is the most aggressive way of saying, "I owe you nothing." That is why people sometimes become hostile after receiving your deepest loyalty. It feels irrational, but psychologically it makes perfect sense. Your goodness becomes a mirror, a moral pressure, a reminder of what they received and what they failed to become. And if they are not built for honesty, they would rather break the mirror than improve themselves. The fifth reason is projection. People who are secretly ashamed of their own selfishness often cannot stay comfortable around genuine goodness for very long. Real kindness unsettles them. It reveals a standard they never intended to live by. It forces comparison. It exposes inner poverty. So they project. They call you manipulative because they know they manipulate. They call you selfish because they cannot imagine giving without hidden motives. They call you weak because your compassion reflects a strength they do not possess. This is one of the most painful parts of betrayal. Not only are you hurt, you are misread. Your intentions are twisted. Your loyalty is reinterpreted. Your care is turned into a false story that makes their betrayal feel justified. And that false story serves a purpose. It protects their ego. Because if they told the truth, they would have to say something far more difficult: "You helped me, and I could not handle what that revealed about me." The sixth reason is brutal, but necessary to understand. Some people do not want healing, they want relief. This is where many good-hearted people destroy themselves. They assume that suffering automatically creates depth. They believe that pain makes people sincere. But pain does not always make a person noble. Sometimes it makes them entitled, defensive, dependent, hungry for rescue without any desire to transform. So while you think you are helping someone rebuild their life, they may only see you as temporary comfort, a bridge, a shield, a source of emotional supply. And once they no longer need what you provide, they leave without reverence because they were never building character. They were only escaping discomfort. This is why one of the hardest lessons in life is this: helping is not saving. You can support someone's growth. You cannot do their growing for them. You can open a door. You cannot force them to walk through it. And the moment you confuse compassion with responsibility for another person's soul, you place your dignity in dangerous hands. The seventh reason, may be the deepest of all: betrayal is sometimes an attempt to kill witness. People can live with failure. They can live with lies. They can even live with hypocrisy. But what they often cannot live with is someone who remembers who they really were. If you saw them when they were desperate, unstable, dishonest, lost, or dependent, then your presence carries memory, and memory has power. You know the version of them they are trying to bury. You know what existed behind the performance. And for an immature ego, that is unbearable. So they cut you off, or attack you, or betray you, not always because you harmed them, but because your existence interferes with the identity they want to perform now. As long as you are there, part of the truth remains alive. This is why betrayal often follows intimacy. The closer you were, the more dangerous your memory becomes. The deeper you saw, the more threatening you are to their false self. Now here is the deeper truth behind all of this. At the center of betrayal is the war between ego and truth. Your help was not just help. It was evidence that they were vulnerable, evidence that they lacked strength, evidence that someone else had what they did not, evidence that love, discipline, steadiness, or integrity existed in a form they had not embodied. That evidence puts pressure on the ego. A mature person uses that pressure to grow. An immature person uses that pressure to attack. That is why betrayal is so often irrational. It is not always strategy. It is compensation. It is pride defending itself from humility. It is shame looking for an exit. It is insecurity trying to recover status by wounding the one person who made its weakness visible. And once you understand that, something painful but freeing becomes clear. Their betrayal is not proof that your kindness was foolish. It is proof that their character was too weak to receive it cleanly. So what do you do with this truth? First, stop measuring the value of your heart by the loyalty of the people you helped. Some people receive water and still resent the hand that offered it. That does not make the water worthless. It reveals something broken in the one who drinks it. Second, help with boundaries. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. Give without losing your center. Support without becoming addicted to being needed. The more someone depends on you for their identity or survival, the more likely they are to resent you for it later. Third, watch how people carry gratitude. This reveals everything. A healthy person becomes more respectful after receiving help. An unhealthy person becomes evasive, competitive, dismissive, or subtly hostile. Learn to see the shift early. Fourth, never beg for loyalty from those who are ashamed of needing you. Shame and loyalty rarely live together for long unless a person has done serious inner work. Fifth, forgive wisely. Forgiveness is not self-abandonment. You can release hatred without reopening access. You can let go internally and still close the door externally. Not every wound deserves a second invitation. And finally, do not let betrayal turn you cold. Let it make you clear. Because real power is not becoming hard. Real power is learning where to place your heart, where to withdraw it, and when to walk away without needing revenge. Some people will love you. Some will use you. Some will resent you simply because your presence reminds them of the war they are losing within themselves. That is not your burden to carry forever. If you were betrayed by someone you once lifted, do not rush to call yourself naive. You may have simply encountered one of the oldest truths in human nature. Many people want the benefits of love without the humility it requires. They want support without memory, closeness without accountability, rescue without transformation. But life does not bend itself around ego forever. The people who betray those who help them most do not escape truth. They only postpone it. Because wherever they go, they carry the same pride, the same envy, the same fear, the same inability to receive goodness without trying to wound it. And that is a prison deeper than the one they tried to place you in. So walk away with your dignity intact. Let them keep their excuses if they need them. Let them call your kindness weakness if that helps them sleep. You know better. You know that helping is not saving. You know that forgiveness is not self-abandonment. And you know now that betrayal often reveals more about what your presence exposed than about what your heart lacked. If you want more on psychology, philosophy, power, self-respect, and the hidden motives behind human behavior, stay close. And remember this, the deepest betrayal is not when someone wounds a good heart. It is when a good heart forgets its own worth because of it.